welcome to Life Action Roleplay with
Cynthia Marie
and Kai Norman
and Ryan Omega. Did I just interrupt you? I'm so sorry.
No, we don't have to start again. We're live. Go.
We're live. Go.
Yeah.
What are we drinking today?
Oh my god.
Not enough.
We're drinking Gods?
No. Sauvignon Blanc white wine. Yay.
I didn't get much sleep last night, so I am going to apologize that I seem a little loopy, and I'm drinking a Rockstar.
Okay,
For those unaware, that's an energy drink.
How would people not know what that is?
I don't know. We apparently have a lot of...
It could be really dirty.
Actually,
now.
you know what? A Monster is definitely available not nationwide, internationally, so I would assume Rockstar energy drinks are also. But I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't been to Europe in a while.
What are you drinking, Ryan?
I am drinking water or ice solution, whatever.
Sadness?
No, I just...
He's drinking the tears of his enemies.
I'm drinking the tears of myself. No, my eye's been irritated today, like to the point where I might have to start getting glasses. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I'm not with contacts right now. So everything is a blur. But I should be fine.
Don't run into the mic.
I will not run into... No guarantees.
What are we all... we already did drinking, right? Yeah, shout-outs.
Shout-outs.
Yes.
Okay.
Go, Ryan.
For me, my shout-out is to a few people, but especially to Sheldon Morley. Congratulations for starting The Undying, a game that you have been planning for 3 to 4 years. It is a spin-off of the game Dying Kingdoms, and it takes place where the mortals and the undead, or the sentient undead, have to coexist. And it is a strange political game because you kind of have to deal with things like zombie rights, how much blood can a vampire drink of a mortal, mortals like working in factories and making sure they're not abused. And it's that kind of a world set. It's almost like a Laurel K. Hamilton type of setting if it were real. Huh. So it's super interesting. The mechanics are very simple for first time players. So it's actually a good beginner type game. And I am actually grateful to Sheldon and Knox for having me play a very political character for their first game. And I also wanted to do another shout out to Janaea Kemper for being one of the writers for The Undying. And she wrote the world setting de la Cambre based off of New Orleans. And as a woman of color, she made it very heritage appropriate to her own heritage in Vodun. And Diana Leonard was able to play a character from that world set. And it was great to see that representation actually manifested in a game to the point where the writer cried that there was actually a person of color in a world setting that she created that people were able to play. So awesome. So shout outs to all of them.
Yay. Kai, shout out?
I'm actually really boring, apparently. I don't have a shout-out this time. Since New Year's and everything like that, I've just kind of been like a little bit of a hermit and just sitting away, chunking away on my laser cutter. You guys will appreciate the things I'll be building for stuff another time. And by you guys, I mean the listeners. You guys will benefit from me getting a laser cutter, I promise. However, I just have kind of been schooling myself on how to use that tools, and therefore haven't really been, going out of the house or seeing people.
Fair enough.
Who are you guys again? I don't even...
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. So shout out to the laser printer.
Yeah,
cutter.
Shout out to the laser printer.
There's a cutter. It's not a printer. It looks like a printer.
It looks like a printer. It is very heavy too. Anywho, so I have a shout out to my La Sangre game, because particularly my Toreador clan, because they put up with a bunch of my shit last week. Oh goodness, that was a lot. But we do have somebody who is part of the Toreador clan that I so highly speak of. You guys will all recognize him by the character name of Yorick, the one that I have cursed umpteenth time. But my shout out always goes to Austin, because I love you so much. So our guest is also Austin.
Oh, thank you very much, Cynthia. Hi, my name's Austin.
Hi, Austin.
Hi, Austin.
Hi, Austin.
I'm a LARPaholic.
Hi, Austin.
I've been playing Vampire for about 12 to 14 years, depending on when you start the counter. I've been the head storyteller for Whispers of Atlanta. Shout out to my Atlanta crew. And I've been the head storyteller for La Sangre de Los Angeles, and assistant storyteller to both those games a couple of different times. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay, thank you for coming. I've been trying to get you on the show for a little while now, so it's very exciting to have you here. James, what's new with your store?
I just released a segment called the Character Creation segment. So the purpose of it is to help, I guess, like beginning LARPers, kind of, let's say they want to pick a character, but they don't know how to build a character. So then they click on whatever class that they would like. They can give suggestions on pieces of their outfit that they can get, like pieces of armor, like pauldrons or bracers, greaves, etc. So as of right now, I just released the Rogue.
The Rogue.
Is that the rogue or the rogue?
The Rogue.
Is there an echo in here?
It's a collection of pieces that could potentially be a rogue. If you go to the website, Ancient Archives Apparel, you can check it out.
What is it again?
Awesome.
ancientarchivesapparel.com.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
thank
to
you
play
so
with
much
that.
Thank you so much for helping us with this podcast, and your recording equipment is super invaluable. So
Thank you.
yeah.
So I guess our topic at this time around, if you haven't noticed, Ryan is not the one who's moderating this time. Yikes. That's because he's probably one of our resident experts on the topic that we're about to talk about. Political characters, am I correct?
Yep.
Political characters. It is weird because this is the topic that I'm supposed to be the authority or expert on. I've been playing Vampire since 2000, so LARPing since 2000. If you count Model United Nations, then earlier than that. And
It's kind of funny, listeners. Right now, Ryan is getting all kind of shy and coy about this, but he is actually really good at this. So hopefully he will be able to provide some super cool insight, especially with our special guest as well.
Thank you. So I guess a little bit of my political LARP experience. I used to play Vampire since 2000. I was the head storyteller in San Francisco for the One World by Night Chronicle, Always Comes Evening, and I played a Bruja by the name of Virgo Reese. And when his sire, Beryl Reese, was killed when they seized Praxis, it was done under mysterious circumstances. Mm-hmm. And a venture had taken over by the name of Connor Stone. And the problem was that I knew that he was diablerized, which was against the Camarilla rules. And I didn't know how to take vengeance on the Connor Stone except to try to seize Praxis myself. And I had a whole bunch of Bruja, like worldwide, willing to support me, except the Bruja Justicar said, okay, I need you to calm down, which was strange, getting a message from the Bruja Justicar.
Was this Justicar Pashak?
This was Masako.
Okay.
So this is old school. This was 2002.
Yeah.
And the Bruja Justicar basically said, okay, I know you're angry, but if you seize Praxis, I can't do anything for you. Think, what can you do that no one else can? And my character was a Camarilla Lawyer. And I could prosecute the prince? No one has ever done it before. So I thought, okay, let me ask all the Bruja. I need all of your status. I need to walk into this next event and have all of this evidence and then give it to an Archon so I could begin prosecuting this prince out of power. And I had 25 pages, 41 status loaned to me. I walked in.
That's a lot of status.
It's a lot of status. But we were at a con game, so...
Clearly I don't play nearly enough Vampire because I'm that's a big number, but I don't really understand.
Yeah. But So I came in with all of this evidence, and I decided that I was going to accept whatever the storytellers were going to tell me, because it is very unusual for the Justiciariat to make those kinds of decisions. In fact, I was expecting that I was going to be killed, because I assumed that was just too brazen to ever ask anyone like the Justicars to make a decision over something that wasn't really directly affecting all of Vampire. So it was given to me that they decided against me, but they didn't do anything until Connor Stone said something on the One World by Night cam list, and I just basically gave him a smackdown in front of everybody. It didn't matter how much status I had. He was more powerful than me, but I just happened to write really, really well. The next
good
big
mic drop moment.
It was a mic drop moment.
Nice.
And
Connor Stone was your rival, your enemy?
Yeah. He was the Ventru that killed my sire.
Damn
To be
freaking Ventru.
Yeah.
The defendant.
And so in one convention game, just before Conclave was about to begin, two Bruja Archon said, Virgo Reese, come forward. And this was in front of like 200 to 300 people sitting there. And I had no idea what was going on. I thought I was going to be, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
You're like, here it comes.
Here it comes. And I get there, and they present me a small little box, and they present me an item card. And I open the box. It's ashes and a set of fangs, and the item card says the ashes of Connor Stone.
Whoops.
And they said, the Camarilla grants you justice.
Did they give you the fizz rep for that as well?
They gave me the fizz rep.
You still have the fizz rep?
I still have the fizz rep. And in front of 300 people, I knelt and broke down and cried.
Wow.
Because
That's
that was
amazing.
the summation of what I had done for 2 years.
Wow.
And once I did that, I earned the title prestigious sire, because to actually have done that with the Camarilla and with the Justiciariat was such a huge move that other princes started to emulate that path. So I changed how Vampire was played from just wanting to avenge my sire.
That's
pretty great.
amazing. So,
Fantastic.
jumping to you, Austin, you want to talk a little bit about Yorick or other political characters you have without killing the glasses?
Yeah, let's break some glasses forward.
Wow, it's going crazy.
So, Yorick is a really interesting character.
He's a pain in the ass.
Because I have set out over the course of my LARPing career to try and play as many different varieties of PCs as I can. I started off with a rough and tumble Bruja Anarch. I did the physical tattoo makeup on my face and wore my hair in a mohawk and was just rah rah rah. And then I switched to a Nosferatu serial killer. Played him for a few years. Who ended up betraying the Camarilla, going Sabbat, and instigating an actual siege against the city that lasted for, I want to say, 3 years after my character's death.
Whoa.
Because I got found out, they dragged me in front of the prince and executed me, but not before I was able to dead drop all my information.
Whoa.
Then I moved out here, played a couple of different characters, but Yorick is interesting because I set out to make him the epitome of the tabletop vampire Harpy. And if you're familiar with the difference between vampire and tabletop and vampire and LARP, if you're not familiar with that, I should say, vampire and tabletop, there is not just one Harpy, there are multiple Harpies that form sort of a cluster, and it's sort of their job to stand off to the side and point out what people are doing wrong.
Actually, if for the benefit of those who might not know, could you describe what a Harpy actually is in Vampire Society? So,
sure.
Listeners who don't necessarily know might have a point of reference for this.
Right. Harpies are the arbiters of status in Camarilla in Vampire Society. So in your Vampire LARP, what a Harpy does is actually keep track of the list of favors that are owed between different vampires, as well as arbitrate matters that, say your vampire character has 41 status loaned to them, and another, like a neonate who only has 3 status, actually 3 statuses, like more ancilla level, but say they only have like 1 status and they badmouth your PC while he has 41 status on him, you would go to a Harpy and be like, this guy right here is a fuckwat, and he needs to be shown exactly how much of an idiot he is. It's the Harpy's job to say, okay, well, you're a huge idiot.
So is the Harpy kind of like the mean girl with the burn book then?
Yes.
Awesome.
That is almost exactly what the Harpy does.
Yes.
That is perfect.
But you have to walk that thin line, right? If your Harpy is too mean to the wrong people, and we're going to talk about, I assume, politics in the sense of like there's 2 different types of like power, visible power versus invisible power, and if you badmouth the wrong person who has too much invisible power, you're going to be out of that position pretty quickly. And so Yorick, just to get back on track, that's what Yorick is. He was built to be like this tabletop version. I don't really want to be the Harpy. I'd rather just be a Harpy who insults people's shoes, talks bad about them behind their backs, about how they disrespected so-and-so, that sort of thing. And it quickly became apparent through roleplay when I brought this character in, like, oh, there's not really anybody else doing this at the time. And the person who was in the role of Harpy was not the most capable of doing the job at the time. And I noticed this. I noticed he needed help. I offered him help. He decided, no, I don't actually want your help because you're a rival. I can see that. I gestured to my eyes. Eye contact. I can see that you are going to be a rival of mine, so I don't want you actually working with me. So I got insulted, as somebody who's extremely petty is wont to do, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the leader of our clan, and I'm going to offer her a boon, a favor, to make the Harpy take me on as a protege. So I said, okay, well, I will pay you a minor boon for you to suggest to Harpy Reiner that I be his lesser Harpy. And Kevin, mad love, but you got played, son.
Which one's Kevin?
Kevin was the player of the Harpy.
The former Harpy?
The former Harpy. The erstwhile Harpy is how I referred to him for a long time.
There's harp knots and harps.
So it gets better because I worked with him for a while, for like 4 months. And I was feeding him bad information.
Ooh.
I was keeping information from him, all with the purpose of making him look bad at every opportunity that I had, which was a really fine line to walk because, like, I didn't want to seem incompetent. If he found out information that was different from what I gave him, then I look like an idiot or that I'm actually sabotaging him.
Did you ever get close to getting caught on those?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever get close to getting caught in those moments?
Well, there were a couple of times where it was like, are you keeping boons from me? Are you like specifically keeping boons from me? I was like, no, I gave you everything that I had.
With your fingers crossed behind your back.
Right.
Me never.
No. And then it finally came around that there were some other maneuvers going on in the court in the sense that the Primogen of this other clan was trying to cement his own power, and my boss, Harpy Reiner, had sort of crossed him a little bit, and so a network of deals were made between the Tremere Primogen, the Ventru Primogen, the Nosferatu Seneschal, and the Toreador Primogen to remove Reiner from the position.
Gotcha.
Mind blown.
And the only...
Did he survive this removal?
He did.
Oh.
He did. There was some bad blood for a long time. We have
Go
since...
figure. Vampires.
He was since convinced to bury the hatchet by saying how excellent of a Harpy I am, which just means that he's just biding his time, I think. Like playing nice to my face and then just sharpening the knife.
Doing what you did?
Yeah, exactly. But so I've taken Lola on as my lesser Harpy. And I've taken on this other gal named Sabrina as lesser Harpies. They don't like each other, and that's by design.
Oh, yeah?
Because if you keep them arguing amongst themselves, they're not going to come for me.
That's great. Because they're too busy fighting each other to prove that they're more valuable and get the other one fired.
What did you call
Right.
us? Who's proving to be the prettier princess?
Yes, it's a competition of pretty princess.
So that in itself, I mean, other than the layers of the different elements of subterfuge and political game that you played with this first, your rival, you've also set yourself up for almost, in essence, something similar to like the Sith having their protege. But instead of hiding the proteges from each other, you've got them knowing each other and directly competing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, as a political move, if you give someone an enemy that they have to deal with that isn't you, then you're deflecting so much, and you get left to your own devices, which sounds like a really, really smart element and very good strategy that works not only in politics, but I'm sure in a lot of other avenues of LARP and roleplay.
I'd say on top of that, though, he's also getting us to fuel information to him. So not only is he getting us to fight amongst ourselves, but we also have to keep giving him our information.
And you're cross-referencing, so if he gets it from both of you, that means that it's likely if one of them tells him a bullshit story and the other one tells him something that's true, he's like,
Yeah.
Who's
lying
me
to me?
over?
that whole situation works out really well. And you did that entirely intentionally?
Yes.
That's very, very sneaky.
Thank you.
No shit.
Well, I think that they know what's going on. Because,
absolutely.
Like, I told them when I took them on, okay, I'm going to have 2 lesser harpies. You're going to be one. She's going to be the other. And at the end of every gathering, you have to give me 2 pieces of information. One of which has to be verifiable with evidence, and the other one has to be likely true, but not necessarily backed up with a lot of evidence. Like they have been given the specific instruction to do this thing, and so they sort of know that if they give me a bunch of bullshit, that I'm going to ferret it out. And credit where credit's due, they've done a very good job. But at the same time, like, nothing that either one of them has told me has surprised me yet, which just means like, oh, I feel great. Like I've got my finger on the pulse of the game right now. And that's wonderful. So it strengthens my position by verifying what I already know with the possibility of me getting new information while keeping my 2 rivals at each other's throats the whole time.
It's brilliant. As a player, I see it. I'm like, motherfucker. Like, this is brilliant. As a character, I'm like, what do I have? This girl, she's putting on an entire party with, frick.
Yeah, right.
Anywho, so back to politics in general, just to get everyone on the same page. My first question to all of us is to define what it means to be political in your minds and the way you guys play. So let's go with you, Ryan, first.
So I go with a lot of the classic definition of politics, since politics comes from the Greek word polis, which is city. It's basically the idea that of how to make decisions that affect a group effectively. And that doesn't sound like it's very schemy, but a lot of the things that I tend to do is I play a lot of leader types. And I also noticed that within just the range of politics and political characters that I play, 20% of my political stuff is against people who you would consider your enemies when you're having to deal with everybody else that you don't like. But 80% of what I deal with is trying to settle things among your allies who don't see eye to eye. They're both good people with common things, but they're at each other's throats. And you have to try to make the peace. And it's the least glamorous part of politics, but is the part that I'm used to having to deal with. And it doesn't look as attractive as like the Law and Order, like we're against everybody, or the good and the bad and the rich and the poor. It doesn't look like that because politics in its essence, in reality, is more complicated.
Austin, anything
I am actually going to disagree with you because I take a very different. I have a very different understanding of politics. Politics is the acquisition and usage of power. That is literally all it is to me. You have. I mean, obviously, city running is a different thing. Like that's politics on a grand scale, and administration, government, and leadership. But politics is like office politics. Like, am I going to get this raise, or is this other guy going to get this raise? And that that quote, "Politics is the acquisition and usage of power," is actually the way that Thomas Jefferson described politics.
Yeah.
It is having a goal and garnering the power and the position to use that power to achieve your goal. And that means gathering allies to achieve that goal and keeping away your enemies that would prevent you from achieving that goal. Everyone who is standing in the way of you achieving your goal, that's a classic antagonist. And everyone else is just sort of side characters in this story that you're on to achieve whatever it is you want. That's just my personal position, I guess.
Cool.
Right on. Kai, you got anything?
I don't really feel like particularly. I agree with the things that have been said, but I view them kind of as like different play styles to the same kind of game. And everyone plays the game a little differently. And some people play it very well, and some people play it very, very poorly. I've seen some beautiful moments, and if said player or group of players are listening in, they'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But without saying names, I've encountered definitely like positions of government created as just kind of distractions. While the real power isn't in the government whatsoever, it's in the people who kind of whispered a few directions and a few suggestions into the right ears and founded a government over kind of just for the misdirection purposes. Everyone feels like they have a voice. Everyone feels like they're contributing. Everyone's fighting over these roles and, like, you know, going into elections and things. And the whole time, a lot of it doesn't really matter at all, because the guys who are in charge are the ones deciding which key players are the ones that necessarily win. And those people will always do what they say, which I find super interesting. And being that I don't necessarily play a particularly political, there we go, words are hard, character in that game, at least, it's really fun seeing how that particular group can really make people dance for them, almost like marionettes.
Okay, so I think, Ryan, you've already touched on this question I'm about to ask, but perhaps you have another moment of it. But for all of us, all of you.
Although I'm curious, what is your definition, Sin? You had not answered it.
Ah, man. I'm actually going to have to agree with Austin. I actually really liked your definition of acquisition of power. I think that, like, really, it as quickly as to boil it down, at least in a LARP sense, right?
It's very succinct.
Yeah, acquisition of power. That really, you're pitting people against each other, regardless if you're removed or in it or not. It's really pushing things around. Kind of how I feel.
I almost feel earlier I mentioned something along the lines of like political and then physical and things like that. But like really, ultimately, everything is political. If you have one person that is, someone that you can rely on or point in the direction of something, and they are forced to be reckoned with, people become intimidated by this enforcer. Or they, quite the opposite, they try to be friends with them. But if you start using that enforcer as a pawn, you have that enforcer lean on someone or tell them, if you want to get in his good graces, you should help me out because then I can make sure he isn't angry at you anymore. And the whole time, he's been in your pocket the whole time, and he listens to what you tell him to. So his power becomes your power, because he's willing to do what you want him to do. And you can use that as a weapon without even having to swing a sword.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen it done so many times where, the prince has the scourge buddy, and it's just, oh, no, he's going to handle this conversation for me. And then the prince walks away, and the scourge is like, so let's talk about how you're going to make this right. Like, oh, all right. So
that sounds like delegation.
Exactly.
Yes.
The best. There's two different types of, for example, CEOs. There's leaders and managers, right? And the manager is going to come to each individual person and sort of tell them exactly what to do. And then the leader is going to have a big group meeting and be like, "You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. Are there any other big issues we have to handle? No. Cool. Go out and do it, and then walk away." Being political is about finding the right tools for the job.
And who to use it on, right? Because in every opportunity is not always necessarily the best thing to let all the people go and handle what they want to do if they're not good at handling what they do, right? So if you have completely new players and you say, hey, I need you to go do this, and this, and they don't know how to do it, you've just kind of set them up to fail unless that's your move. Which, Austin, knowing you, that could potentially be your move.
I did it as a storyteller once, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Right. So,
but that's a good way of feeling people out.
Yeah.
And if it's, if you set it up to be like, oh, it's this really super dangerous thing that I need you to go do, and I'm really relying on you to go do this thing, but you've set it up so it's a really easy thing, then they come back, they feel, oh yeah, no, we did this super great thing for you, and oh, I'm so grateful, thank you, here, let me pay you for that, and they have a positive experience coming to you, you've got a positive experience with them leaving and having done the thing you want them to do, everybody's a winner, and you've got 2 more pawns in your pocket.
You've just built rapport.
Exactly.
My. So I guess speaking of the player populace in general, and this is also an experience that I'm seeing on my own, but do you feel that people shy away from a political/social game? If so, why? And also perhaps solutions to new players that could help them be more active in a political sense if they're feeling a little bit shy about it.
So for people who kind of tend to shy away from politics, I think part of it from what I've seen is that with the current, I hate bringing this into it, we are in a current political climate that people are just uncomfortable with. And so they just kind of assume that if you're playing politics, that it reminds them of the real world politics, and it kind of sullies that idea in their head that, oh, I'm playing politics, that means I have to play dirty, and therefore I am dirty. Even though this is like a LARP where like everything is totally fine. But for a few people, like they just don't want to delve into that kind of world setting. But the reality is the moment you play any game where you have to make a group decision, you're already playing politics. That's kind of the nature of playing a game. But in order to get into the political world, there is like some level of, if you can at least show that you are competent at what you're doing, that you can kind of relate to everybody else and get a level of trust that everyone can see in you in order to give you more responsibilities and more other things. That's kind of like where you at least need to start. Like, because if you're not competent and you're not like relatable and you don't have much to go on at that point. So that is at least your foundation for doing anything political. Everything else can be taught.
When you're saying that some people are kind of turned off from politics, I have to agree with that kind of mentality at times. There have been a few things that have happened at one of the games that I've played in where I've been like, I don't want any part in this. Some of the election aspects for it, I'm not entirely sure whether it was kind of a case of my character bleeding in, because my character doesn't deal with politics in the place that he goes, like the setting in the game. He's not a member of the town. He's just a visitor, and he always has been. So he's not as interested in what goes on there other than like him and his. So he doesn't really care. But that say, in another game, I have a white hat, whose hat is not actually white, but still. So I have a character that genuinely means well and has seen a number of people with positions that he does not feel that they do up to performance. And is now actively taking steps to basically slip into a way of taking over those positions temporarily and then raising the bar so high the person who had that position before is either going to basically not be able to handle it and will look completely inept, and everyone will be, well, why don't we just give this guy his job? Or that other character, like the person with the position before, would just turn around to my character and say, yeah, I can't do that. You seem to be doing better. Maybe I should just let you do it. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's definitely a political power play. And I didn't really anticipate myself making those kind of political power plays until I actually saw a situation where my character was becoming frustrated with something. And in a very like almost real life environment, I was like, I don't like how this is being handled. Someone needs to do something. I look around, no one's doing anything, fine, I guess I'll do it. But at the same time, in the other game, when I saw some of the things going on, because I was so far removed from it, I was just like, there's so much corruption, there's so much obvious puppeteering going on that I can't change any of that. And that, personally, for me, made me feel like a little gross about it, like because it had a little bit too much of a real-life parallel. So I think in fantasy settings, politics is actually a little more approachable for me, personally. But in a modern day or like near enough kind of setting, I actually find, like the idea of government kind of positions or things like that a little intimidating or a little kind of like too close to home, kind of. Some people are just like, I don't want to play that kind of political game. But
on Ryan's other point about if you sit down to a game of like Betrayal at the House of Haunted Hill and you're making group decisions, like you were engaging in politics.
Absolutely.
Right. There's going to be somebody who's the group leader. There's going to be somebody who's sort of the beta or omega of the table.
The omega
like,
of the table.
So punny.
But yeah, like the person that people turn to make those decisions is the leader of the group.
Yeah.
And they've sort of politicked their way into that, whether or not that's backhanded deals or whether or not they're just the most forceful personality there. And so to new players that want to get involved in politics, I would say there's two different ways to do it. There's the way that Kai described, which is to take initiative to do things to seem competent so that people will trust you.
Yeah.
Or the other way, which is to take center stage and just be that forceful personality. Because people will respond to whatever somebody is saying as long as they're saying it from a stage.
Basically, you're almost kind of saying, if you don't have the authority, make it look like you have the authority?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool.
That's. I'm not saying fake it till you make it, because
I have seen people do just that, and it has worked out hilariously well for them.
It works sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you're in a game where you're developing experience and you're able to fake it until you have enough experience on your sheet to make those that power level sort of match with what you're portraying, awesome. Do that. If you need 30 experience on your sheet in order to have etiquette and the politics abilities to sort of smooth sail your way in, cool. But if you don't, what I would say to that player is never make any promises you can't actually fulfill, or at least have a plan to get out of those promises.
Yeah.
The first way, which is to take the initiative and do the things, be the change you want to see in the world, right? I would say that's more like almost the heroic side.
It's like the good guy attitude.
Yeah, it is like the good guy attitude.
Okay.
The people who just sort of get elected into power are the ones who go out and do stuff, and they're like, hey, this guy's great, we should make him ruler. And then there's, people who just sort of put themselves in the position where people have to listen to them and start making decisions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have that choice, and they need someone to be that middle person.
Yeah.
And so they kind of just put it on you. It's like, okay, you have the most rank of anybody here, and everyone pays attention to you. What do you think?
Oh, God.
And that's actually happened to me at Sicario, like pretty much throughout Twin Mask. Because when in early Twin Mask Year 1, when the Effendal, which were the elves, and the humans were fighting, I was playing a noble that was a party drunk noble, and they said, well, okay, he's a lord, so we should talk to him. And then the Effendal, who were constantly at battle with the humans, wanted to make a truce, so they went and they decided they didn't want to talk to any humans except me, because they assumed that if they talk to me, I can delegate to everybody else. So at that moment, it was kind of if I don't accept this, then there's going to be worse fighting and more people are going to die.
Victim of circumstance?
I'm a victim of circumstance. But it was also I didn't have to take it, but it also made more sense for the game. It's like, all right, we will sit down, we'll have literally the Thanksgiving dinner and not kill each other, so that we can show we are trying, and we did not attempt to take over your land. We're just here by circumstance, and we'll make peace. We'll just have to talk constantly communication is key. If there's a problem on your side, tell me. If there's a problem on our side, I will tell you. So that's kind of how we did very early government in Twin Mask.
We haven't really addressed the shyness part of Cynthia's question. And it just occurred to me, sorry, oh, I actually don't have any advice for somebody who's super shy but wants to play politics. Like, I remember when I was shy, but it was so long ago that I just don't have anything to say about it.
I have a pretty good idea for that. And so here's, if I'm feeling nervous about a situation, you know how some people give those cautionary bits of advice of like, if you're going to talk to a room, imagine everyone's naked, unless that makes you horny, in which case don't do it. Stuff like that. But brevity aside...
Yeah, public speaking.
Right? But brevity aside, I feel like the best way for you to... if you're feeling shy about it, is start out small. Develop interpersonal relations with each of these people that you want to work alongside with. Develop in-character friendships with those characters. Make yourself useful to them. Help them, have them help you. Have a feeling of mutual ingratiation between the two of you. And then, while maintaining that friendship, find someone else. And another person, and just keep adding slowly. Keep slowly adding arrows to your quiver of allies. And then when you're trying to do something that's big and important, you're not surrounded by enemies, you're surrounded by friends. And because of that, you feel less nervous.
For me, because when I started LARP, I was very much an introvert. So I understand the whole shyness thing. And I can tell you from a very practical standpoint, the easiest way for me to gain power was to go into meetings and take notes. Every single meeting, I took notes. And then whenever people needed information, I would always disseminate, okay, so here are the notes. And then if they didn't have them, they would come to me like, so hey, do you remember what happened in that meeting? It's like, yeah, this and this was inconsistent. And so was that. And they're like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, because I have this note and I have that note. It's like, oh, can you come to this meeting? It's like, sure. Can you bring notes? It's like, absolutely. So I would, from a literal standpoint, get out of my shyness by starting off almost inward, track everything, because you would be surprised how many people misremember and don't. But if you have the information's power. It really is. That's where you start if you're very shy.
So I have actually... I really wanted to answer this question myself because it's something that I personally struggle with.
Oh, please.
So I'm gonna open up to y'all. As people who know me in real life, like I'm as extroverted as you could probably imagine. Everyone thinks I'm a complete and utter extrovert. Life is like I'm out there, like let's do the thing. I'm a dancer, like let's go. When I was asked to LARP, I literally freaked out because I was like, wait, I have to talk? Hold on. I can't dance my way out of this. I can't like act and pretend like no words exist. I actually have to talk. So I legitimately freaked out to the point that thank God my sister called me. She was like, hey, I would have joined you. I was like, oh my God, thank God. Can you like just hold my hand? Because I'm really scared to talk. So I started figuring out, I was actually pretty quiet-ish in my first game. I actually sat back and watched how people moved in the game and who was the loudest talker. Austin.
It's actually quite, I mean, it's not really surprising, actually, when you think about the fact that there's so many of us that are nerdy, and a lot of us are more introverts than extroverts. I feel like, to a certain degree, our hobby does attract more of that, and the more you play, you can slowly find more extroverted ways of handling things to a certain degree.
So what's frustrating for me is the difference between introvert and extrovert, right? So just because I'm an extrovert doesn't mean that I like to go up and talk to everybody in the world. Yeah. So for me to overcome this challenge has been a 6-month process for me to actually come out of my shell and speak to people. Like me becoming Lesser Harpy for you has been the most terrifying thing because I was like, oh God, I got to actually talk politically. Like, holy frack, like I got to come up with information. I got to talk to other people. Oh no. What I did was actually latch on to people that I saw that were speaking loudly, or who was in the mix quickly. So Poisel was the first person that I saw that was running around like manipulating things. And I was just like, I'm going to start talking to this person right now. And then I started talking to Kevin Reiner, seeing what he was doing because he was kind of sitting back, but I know that he had a lot of information that he was just kicking it there. And then it took me a really long time to come up to York for a while, until York just immediately just ran up to me, and I was like, ah! Don't talk to me. I'm not here. Which is different because Lola is a showgirl, right? She's out there, and hey, you start talking to me about dance, and I can tell you everything. Like the conversation you and I had about King Louis XIV not too long ago. Mm-hmm. That was epic for me because it was something that I, as a player, knew a lot about, and I was able to share that with my character. But if you were to ask me about, hey, what's going on in the domain, I'd be like, let me get back to you on that one.
I remember.
So my advice to new players is to latch on to someone that you feel comfortable enough to share your fear about why you don't want to be political, and perhaps your goal of, this is what I want to be, but I don't know how to do it. And particularly for a woman to be able to open up to our game is predominantly, well, no, it's pretty half and half right now, men and women.
Yeah.
But so it's hard for a woman to open up to a man sometimes about some of the issues that we have. And in the Toreador clan particularly, there's only 2 females right now. So I had to pick and choose who I was going to open up and talk to real fast. And I love you, Judy, but Jenna is real scary to open up to. So Reiner was kind of the safer choice between Reiner and Avion. So that's where Lola kind of sat. And what?
You thought Reiner was safer to talk to than Avion?
I said between the 2.
But still.
I didn't say safer. I just said easier to talk to.
Weird. All right.
Yes.
Sorry for the listeners. Avion is like this super nice dude.
He really is.
Like, the player is awesome and super nice, but then the character is extremely chill and is like friends with everybody at court. And it was like, but Reiner? What? I don't.
So you want to talk about politics? I noticed everybody who that Avion was talking to and who Reiner wasn't talking to. So I wanted to figure out that story first.
No. Well done.
Thank you. But at any rate, for new players and particularly female new players, find the person that you feel most comfortable talking to, both in and out of character, so that you can share your issues and your goals. I think it's probably the safest and best way to go about it, at least in my experience.
That's pretty cool. I like how you took a lot of new players when they start instantly, unintentionally become wallflowers for the first few games, and you absolutely turned that into almost like a boon. Like it became a playstyle aspect where you got to take advantage and take the time and absorb everything before you decided to make a strategic move.
And so I've shared this before, but I get severe anxiety, which is tied to other issues with me. So speaking out as well took me a really long time to get across, and I would get a lot of anxiety to the point where I would have to literally shut down and not talk, which is why I built in my sister as my bodyguard. So at the point that I couldn't literally speak, she would understand and be able to kind of like push characters away from me, which inevitably turned Lola into this like kind of like cold, like nobody, like she didn't want to talk to anyone if they weren't worth, like there was a few people who were like, wow, she's mean. I was like, really? No, I was actually just going through an anxiety attack and I really just couldn't talk. But I was like, well, if that's the way you want to look at it, then yes, I intentionally did that.
And having like a friend come with you to a game is also a good like support structure. And also kind of badass for having your own personal like bruiser enforcer ready to like get people to back off.
Except for she's getting taken away from me now.
Uh-oh.
I'm really surprised that a lot more veteran players aren't really approaching a lot of the newer players, because one of the easiest political ways to gain new followers is to be ingratiating and just say, hi, welcome to the domain, or welcome to this. Like, tell me all about you. Okay, this is where you can help. And usually that simple introduction will have you develop not only that relationship, but now they kind of want to do things for you.
Agreed.
That is a very, very healthy way to perpetuate a good gaming experience. I will hazard a slight guess. You can only be so enthusiastic to new players so often. Sometimes you will put energy and effort into someone, and then they'll never come back. Or you start trying to, like chat with them and role play with them, and you're like asking them questions about their character in character. You're like, well, so where are you from? and they haven't worked that out yet. So it if anything, it makes them feel more awkward as they're like, oh, I don't really have a backstory. I just kind of came to check it out. This is my first time. And they feel pressured very quickly. And you don't necessarily want to, like put that on someone. So I can understand there are a couple of reasons, but I super agree with the idea of being supportive to new players without necessarily kind of like, interrogating them for information.
Well, you don't want to put them under obligation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in efforts to save a little bit of time, we're going to kind of go lightning round. Like, go ahead and give like a good answer, but shorten that a little.
Condense it.
I'm grabbing a question from Facebook from actually a post that Ryan had posted. This is from Brianna. How does one typically begin their rise into political power and respect? Is it strategy, charisma, birthright / nobility, resources, or a combination of both? Austin, you had replied to it actually saying that was an interesting topic, so why don't you go ahead and take the lead on that one?
So my belief is that anybody can come into any game and be a political player within their first 3 games, regardless of their character's background, resources, or anything. And that is all based on knowing who you're talking to, being observant, realizing that proximity to power equals power, those sorts of things. Like, there are just some rules you can follow real quick to get into it. Being charismatic helps, but is not necessary, that sort of stuff. If I'm having to give the short version answer, those are the bullet points.
Ryan?
For me, I do stick with the statement of like, be competent, be helpful, be easy to approach, listen a lot. But when it comes to if you want to rise quicker into the political scene, like I always think of things like access. So that means either having more resources or having a social status will just make you do that faster, but it's not required.
For me, it kind of depends on the system. If you've got a setting that has a very strong like nobility kind of aspect, where players are expected or required to follow that, then that works as a very good opener. But I do, even in settings that do have those kinds of rules engaged, it isn't always respected by the player base. People kind of forget the actual like social status of a character sometimes in favor of just familiarity. But I do agree that charisma is one way of helping things. Try to make as many friends in the room as you can is a great method. Or alternatively, just like has been suggested before, find the biggest kid on the block and make friends with him. As Austin said, proximity to power is power.
Word.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like little nuanced strategies that you can kind of take. There's no one right answer other than if you want to be a political player, you have to be you have to make allies. You cannot be a lone wolf. It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Not
you
at
cannot
all.
be Batman.
Nope.
And I've seen people try and they wonder why they crash and fail. It's like, because you're not being helpful. You're trying to be this cool hero. It's like you need someone who can actually administrate and delegate and do all these things. Like the evil person that wants to rule the world. It's like, you do realize how much administration is required in running the world, right? No? No? Okay, then why do you want to rule the world?
Gotta have minions. And didn't y'all say a couple of podcasts ago that Batman is a terrible character concept to come into a LARP
Yeah,
with?
CW mentioned that.
it's a
I
bad idea.
like to keep reminding that.
He's fun to cosplay, but
Oh yeah.
Oh, sure.
not to LARP.
Yeah.
So concept of pre-bleed, I was actually just enlightened about what pre-bleed is. Are you guys familiar pre-bleed?
No, yeah.
So
That's not a term right now.
real quick, pre-bleed is basically with our growing of online experiences where we're doing downtimes and emailing back and forth and stuff like that. You kind of set yourself up for what's coming next. So not necessarily bleed in like the exact scene that you're doing right at the moment, but setting up beforehand. So, for example, for me, for Lola, in the last game that I had, I actually experienced quite a bit of pre-bleed between the New Year's game and the game that we were about to play on Saturday because of all the stuff that I started thinking about of, oh, God, what could she possibly, like, get herself into? Is she going to die right now? Like, oh, my God, like, all the things. So, my question for you guys is, as far as political pieces are are concerned, I assume that a few political plots could be happening outside of actual game or live action gaming. Do you feel that pre-bleed could potentially set you up for failure, as in what I was explaining to myself, or saying what I experienced before, or do you think it'll help you help strengthen you when you go into the actual game for live action?
I would say that anything you can do to avoid feeling anxiety before you actually show up to the LARP is probably a good idea. And one of the ways that I avoid that when I'm setting up for a game is to think about, especially in terms of political maneuvers, is to think about make a list of things that I'm going to do, regardless of the consequences of those things. I talk a lot about like my character dying and being okay with that because I've made peace with that a while ago.
You're playing to lose?
Yeah, I play loose. Like after my third PC died in a LARP setting, I was like, all right, my gloves are off. Like anything goes at this point. I've been hurt as badly as I can.
Claws are out.
I feel no pain. So yeah.
Okay, so for me, pre-bleed, I feel like is paralyzing because you can't do anything with it. It's like you have spinning wheels, and the problem is like without a place to stop, the only thing you can do is just obsess over it, and that is just not a healthy thing to do. So the way I kind of try to deal with any pre-bleed, this is a new concept to me, so this is kind of cool.
And something I'm still learning too, so if I got it wrong, someone please enlighten me on it, but that's what I've learned.
So like the way I would have to deal with it is like, okay, so I have to come up with and almost role play out, okay, these are your possible solutions, and I kind of even do it through my body, and I get really silly because I look like I'm talking to myself and I'm actually doing all the actions because I have to see how it's going to happen. In fact, the place where I actually have the most pre-bleed is on Fury's Fate, on Dungeons and Dragons, because usually we're sitting down in chairs, and then if we go through an action and then it's like, that's all the time we have for today. And I'm like, and that was a cliffhanger. It's like, okay, what am I doing for that week in order to prepare? So that's my pre-bleed, and the way I solve that is I look up rules, I talk to Rudy, it's like, hey, is this a possible thing? And then I go, okay, this is going to sound silly, but 1, 2, 3, I only think of 3 things I could possibly do because the rest of it is going to happen when I'm on air.
You are such a Ravenclaw. I love you. That's exactly what I did.
That is actually a really good point, is find a buddy who is okay with you talking to them about LARP stuff or game stuff endlessly. That's why I'm very happy I'm friends with our head storyteller, is like I can just chat with him and he not tell me anything that's going on, Johnny. But that's still cool. Like I can workshop with him, just sort of air my thoughts because he already knows everything that's going on in the game. It's not going to affect anything if he knows my thoughts on the matter. So yeah, find a buddy who you can talk with it about.
So for me, having decompression buddy, it sounds super healthy. Actually, all of the suggestions here sound very good, and it kind of makes me think about or reminded about the fact that pre-game rituals are kind of a really important way to get yourself in the mood for a LARP. I've seen a lot of trending recently with some people kind of like there's some people who have hype and they make hype posts and they're like getting in character for it. They write a little like short story, novella kind of thing. Might be a paragraph, might be a sentence, might be anything. Could even be linking a song. And they're just kind of like getting excited for a game. But I see some people kind of anti-hype, where they'll intentionally post negative things because they're feeling not excited for game. And I think that is an intrinsically unhealthy thing to do. A good response in that way, if you're feeling kind of like bummed for a game, then like reach out to your close friends, like a decompression buddy or something. And like, if you know both of you enjoy the LARP and stuff, ask what they're looking forward to at the game. And like kind of bounce off of that. Or something that I like to do to get me hyped into game, I have playlists of music for every one of my characters. And if I'm wanting to get back into the spirit of that character, then I'll start listening to that playlist because it gets me hyped up.
Sin?
Oh, my answer.
Yeah. You don't get just ask the question.
Come on, man, I'm a moderator right now.
I know.
Okay.
You're doing a pretty good job.
Thank you. So from the experience that I had from last game, it's kind of along the lines of what Ryan had suggested. I literally mapped out every single possibility that could happen to Lola.
Ravenclaw.
Yes,
High five.
My analytical brain just like went through the roof, and I was just like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna get staked. I'm gonna run away. Wait, okay, so if I'm gonna run away, where am I gonna go? Like, who am I gonna follow? Like, you don't understand. Like, and my girl group on Facebook, which we're all decompression buddies. We have a chat of us girl groups. Yes. Don't give me that look, Austin. But yes, we have a girl chat. So like I think leading up to it, I was like, oh my God, you guys, I'm really scared. You know what? I'm just not going to come to game right now. Like I will show up some other time. And they're like, Cynthia, calm down. Like you're fine. You're going to be fine. Just go. You got this. So I started wrapping my brain around the idea of playing to lose. And I was like, you know what? Frick it. I'm done. Like if Lola's gonna die big, and I'm just gonna go like in a big, like sparkly, like yes. And honestly, Saturday's game, and I keep saying this, I never share my experiences in LARP because that's my experience and our experiences alone. I don't really like to talk about it too much, aside from this podcast. But it was completely and 100% different than what I had even written down and expected. I got freaking status.
Yeah.
That's how freaking different the game went. Like it was insane. So all of the web diagrams and Venn diagrams that I had written about Lola's possible end none of it happened, which is great. So I built it all up in my head. So to answer my question, pre-bleed I think could be both a hindrance and a strength if you know how to use it wisely.
Nice.
I'm going to throw a joke in real quick. The problem with vampire politics is there's so much at stake.
Knee slapper.
With that in mind, do you have any more, or moving swiftly on, shall I say, do you have any more questions that you want to put out?
I have a ton of questions, but I think that we've already kind of touched on all of them. So I'm really...
What about any on Facebook?
Yeah, so I've got a bunch on Facebook. So throwing this out there to our general council of opinions here. Corey asks, when playing a political leader, would you rather be feared or loved by your people? And do you think either method is more or less effective in the long run? Austin?
I would love to be loved at all times, but sometimes fear is more effective. So I agree with Machiavelli on this point.
Yeah.
It is better to be loved than feared, but if you can't be loved, then be feared.
Well, that's super good. I mean, are you good on that, Ryan, or do you have a thing to say?
I have something slightly different. Like, I know that to some extent the character of Sicarial, who's the Archduke, is loved. However, I do want people to remember that sometimes you cannot run over the things that I have put down as edicts. So sometimes I will have to make an example and will therefore have to fear maybe 10% of the time. 90% of the time, I'm agreeable. I drink with you. But the other 10%, you do not cross me.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Next question. This is by James. He's asking for kind of good tips if you become kind of a leader, either de facto or more, an intentional leader. How do you guys handle delegation? Because me personally, having played a faction leader before, I had a big problem where I couldn't let go of my responsibilities, and it took me a long time to actually give other people those responsibilities as jobs. Like that was hard for me. So I can kind of agree with James. Like, do you guys have good tips for delegation when it comes to being a political leader and a political power?
When I was back in Georgia, and I was playing my Nosferatu serial killer, he ended up as Primogen, which was very strange. But I was sort of in this position where the character was not exceptionally social. He was gruff, he was bestial, he was evil, and it was impossible for me to get things done as Primogen if I tried to get them done myself. I was sort of forced into this position where if I wanted to be effective, I had to get other people to do the things for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of in the same position now as Yorick, where there are a lot of people that just straight up won't talk to me because I'm the boss.
Oh, yeah?
And of the social scene, obviously. I'm not declaring Praxis on a podcast. That'd be hilarious. But no.
You heard it here. Wait, no.
Oh, God. But I was like, all right, there's enough people in this game where I have to have people to delegate to. Otherwise, I'm not going to get enough done in the night. No one's going to want to talk to me because I'm the big scary Harpy. So if you're looking to delegate, you just have to like set up rules for yourself. This is what I did. I set up rules for myself. I said, all right, these people are going to do these things, and I am not going to let myself handle it. If they start to, or if I feel like I need to step in to handle it, then I need to yell at them to do their job. Like, have that rule, those rules written down somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I have those rules written down for myself.
Cool.
For me, I used to have a problem where I kept thinking that I had to do everything myself. So delegation was a thing that I had to work through in LARP. But over time, I figured out the easiest way to kind of do delegation was to talk to your 3 or 4 buddies or 2 or 3 buddies and say, hey, I am not good at this. How do I do that? And just ask. Sometimes they'll go, okay, let's help you with that. And they will kind of do things for you if you have like at least a close cadre of people that I'm like, oh, that are at least gonna stand behind you. Usually there are people that in your head and in their head, you kind of see yourselves as a level of equals. So these are at least people that you're willing to trust, and so they can actually do the things for you, and then they can report to you. And the longer you do it, they don't realize that they're actually kind of working for you at that point. That sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Well, I just think it's funny because for most of this conversation, you've taken like the good guy approach to things, and I've been sort of the bad guy in a lot of ways. So that's like the first real bad guy thing I think I've heard you say, which is kind of interesting.
What?
Oh, no, I've just manipulated all these friends of mine into thinking that we're all equals, but they actually work for me.
I have so many more questions that people have, and so many of them are kind of interesting. So I'm just gonna throw a couple out there, and like whoever feels that they are the most qualified can give a little bit of advice, and then we can try and move to the next.
Yeah.
You should throw chops.
Yes.
Yeah,
and probably one thing, like if maybe we can't cover in this podcast, we could probably try to answer them on the Facebooks.
As always, guys and girls listening, if you have questions, like join our Facebook group, so we can chat on that too. And if you want to really help us out, give us a 5-star like review on Podbean and iTunes, because it really helps with visibility.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Now, so. Yep. Quentin asks, how do you get other PCs of lower class and status to respect the authority of your character that has a higher degree of status?
Get your Harpy.
Without being a dick.
Without being a dick.
That's an important preface there.
For me, the easiest thing to do is ask how can I help you? Mm-hmm. I mean, I kind of think to some extent being the leader, like being a producer, because I am a producer, is basically being the big PA. You know, ultimately your job is to make the show run, but you also have to handle everything to little details. So for them, if they have a personal connection with you and they know that you do important things, then it cements in their head that you are important, that even doesn't require having to know a level of status. But if you are just coming in and saying, okay, you need to respect me because I'm important, no one cares.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't have to say that you're important to demonstrate that you are.
I have like 2 sentences on this.
Go. Yeah.
Basically, people respond to different incentives, right? And the best way to elevate your status in the eyes of other people is to appear to elevate their status in your eyes. So you praise publicly, and shame privately.
Nice.
I like that. That's awesome.
That's a cool.
That's good.
A cool one. A follow up. Nathan says similar to that previous question. How would you generate successful in-game laws for a given LARP setting and maintain them actually being fun and engaging for players? Like if you're a law writer in-game. This one I think might be a kind of tricky one, but do you guys have any personal opinions about like laws and things? I usually feel that it's probably better keeping them loose and simple because if you have them kind of like too specific, they can be very kind of restricting. If you keep them a little more simple on a moral kind of standpoint of like, don't kill people, don't steal shit kind of things, those are usually going to chafe with people a lot less than, don't walk around in a hat on Tuesdays.
I know that as Sicarial, doing this in Twin Mask was probably the biggest challenges that I've had to deal with as a leader, because at least in character for me, I had to rectify like the laws of Solace. I had to reconcile the laws of Solace with the Unity government like rules with the rules of society, and I had to balance all of that and give something that makes sense. The other problem was when we had a council, the reason why council ended up getting disbanded was because we would spend 3 to 4 hours trying to work out laws while people were dying, and it made no sense in game.
Yeah.
So there's not a perfect way to do it. The only thing that I could think of that can make sense is that understand that laws are subject to interpretation of the people who are running it, but have them clearly accessible and available to anyone who can read it. So like have them have a copy of it in the tavern, have a copy of it in like other governmental places, and just start there.
Okay, cool. I like that. So real quick, we're going to see if we can get through 2 of these, or maybe just one. Do you guys have any good bits of advice on how to actually run in a roleplay situation an actual trial?
I've never seen it done.
Yeah?
I've had to go through a few.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, people who want to run trials, no. Do not run trials if you can help it, because people assume that trials are going to look like Law and Order, or they're going to look like Few Good Men, and it never turns out that way. Because what happens is that you have a few people in the front interacting in this trial, and you have 100 people sitting in the back watching this theater, and it is not fun. It is not engaging for those hundreds of people. Or like I've seen this done in a place where there were about 300 people, and they were holding conclave, and it was only like 10 people doing the interaction, and they had flown from everywhere, and they were there for 3 or 4 hours in makeup and full gowns, and that was the game. This idea that, well, that's what happens in character, and I was like, that is not what you do to people who flew halfway across the country. I don't care. It's like you look at the joy and the enjoyment of people's interaction, and it's not done through trial. If you're going to have a trial, only have the people involved, and that's it.
Make it a private trial?
Make it a private trial. Public trials are useless.
Or you can metagame it out, just sort of have a rough conversation, like here's the evidence we have, present it to the person who's going to make the decision, and then come back out of chambers or whatever. I did air quotes around chambers. So they come out and like this is the announcement. This is the decision of this judge. This person has been found guilty, and that's it.
I like that answer. That's a better center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better answer. Sorry.
Both are very, very fun ideas. Now, Ryan,
Yes.
as the final one, there was a Art of War Sun Tzu quote that you had some opinions on.
Yes.
I think it's a wonderful quote, if I may read it.
Yeah.
If your enemy is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is superior in strength, evade him. If your opponent is temperamental, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. If sovereign and subject are in accord, put division between them. Attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. And that is the quote.
Yes.
And you had some feelings on this.
Yes. And so my response in the Facebook was that I understand that is a perspective in politics, but it's not enough. And it's because I want to reiterate that is 20% of your politics, because the other 80% is having to settle arguments among allies. And you don't necessarily want to do any of those things with your allies, especially maybe two good allies that just have different viewpoints, but for whatever reason is just really close to them. And then you have to figure out a third solution that doesn't exist.
Gotcha. So you would say one of your best bits of political advice is while you should always be aware of your enemy, one of the more important things is maintain your own castle before you go to war.
Absolutely. Your destruction of your political career is not usually at the hands of your enemies, but it's because your allies no longer support you.
Gotcha. And Austin gives a very, very amused, big smile about this. Do you have a comment there?
Well, it's just
I've
seen so many people think that they're in a much stronger position than they are when they make grandiose, gestures and statements. I may be stepping foot into one right now in our game.
I was waiting for that to come up.
So it's just sort of fun to hear it in person. And you're absolutely right. Like the enemies that you have are not innumerable. You're probably going to have one or two, and then the rest of your game to game existence is like not related to destroying your enemies, and the rest of that is politics.
I feel like we're kind of at the close. We've been talking for a while. I think we're almost up to. I have no idea actually.
Sin is moderating. So are we?
How are we doing? Do you think it's time to wrap up?
It is definitely time to wrap it up. So social medias.
Awesome.
So I don't really do social media aside from Facebook. So if you really want to find me, you can look for Nolan. That's my first name, Nolan, Nolan, Goodyear, like the tire company, on Facebook. Or if you want to find a dead Twitter handle, you can find me at Scamort, which is SCAMORT at Twitter.
Cool. And you also wanted to plug our game, correct?
I do want to plug our game. It's called La Sangre de Los Angeles. You can find us on Facebook by looking for La Sangre OWBN, all one word. So LASANGREOWBN.
Nice.
Yay. Ryan?
So, little trivia thing for those who do not know. Kenny Lowell and I started La Sangre a long time ago.
Dab.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was, there was no Camarilla game or no Obi-Wan game, and Kenny wanted to run one, so I said, I will come help you. And so we started this game. And that still runs. And it's kind of amazing that still runs. Anyway, my name is Ryan Omega. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Ryan Omega. And you could find me on Twitter under Ryan OMGA.
Kai?
So some of you who are earlier listeners might remember my old handles. My new handles have actually changed over. So on Instagram, it's Yokai Props. That's YOKAI Props. And Twitter is the same. So come find me on those and give a shout out or something like that. Please, again, don't forget, if you can give us a 5-star rating on Podbean, iTunes, or both of them, we're going to try and look into making that worth your while in the future with something special anyway. But the more you guys can help us get visibility, the more and longer we can keep doing this for you.
Right on. If you guys actually wanted to find me, you can find me on Instagram with Cynthia__Marie or my Twitter, which is Sin Dancer. And also, don't forget, James Darling, what is your website that you can have people go shop for all of their costume needs?
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. It is ancientarchivesapparel.com.
Thank you, James. Does anybody have any other overs just in case? Any other last words? Yes, Austin.
I have some reading homework for our listeners who want to become better politicians in LARPs. Check out Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you are a shy person, generally, read this book. If you are bad with people, read this book. If you want to be better politically, read this book. The other one is 48 Laws of Power. I don't have the name of the author offhand, but read it. It's very good. And then just read as many biographies and stories as you can about famous politicians.
I think we're done
All
then.
right, well, this is us signing off. Later. Bye.
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 Auf Wiedersehen.